welcome back to Sophie Watches Movies. The star of our show is currently eating dinner, but we're going to go on without her for the time being. Again, for those just joining us this week, we have essentially created a bracket of 128 of the internet's favorite movies, and we have randomly ranked them and are now comparing them to try and determine one day, 20 years from now, what is the greatest movie of all time, according to the internet and then our objective opinions. I'm always Jaden.
I'm Kennedy.
Hi, it's Af.
Alright, so this week we looked at Rebel Without a Cause and It's a Wonderful Life. So hopefully this episode will be out just in time for Christmas. Start off with Rebel Without a Cause, seated 91 in our bracket. It was pulled from AFI's Top 100, that's American Film Institute's. And yeah, what's your guys' experience with this movie?
I think that my mom talked about it a lot when I was a kid. I think that she genuinely had a really high opinion of James Dean. I watched it when I was really young, and I think that I was way too young to understand anything but that my mom really liked it. So that's where I'm sitting.
My experience with this was watching this with all y'all, and I just want to say, title, a little bit misleading. Thought this was going to be a war movie.
No, not quite a war movie. In between. This is, for me, I believe I watched this for the first time in college at some point. Just one of those, Rebel Without a Cause. It's one of those movies you have to watch at some point if you like movies. I'm personally a big fan of this. I got the impression as we were watching this that I might end up standing alone in that by the end of this discussion.
I feel like that's going to be a theme. Is you standing alone trying to stop us from hating whatever movie the internet told us to love.
Hey, there was that one time that Af stood alone, okay?
Oh yeah, I guess that's...
Af voted alone before I did.
He voted that the movie wasn't as good as the other movie. You have only been in the position of defending really shitty movies against us being like, no, that's a shitty movie. And you're like, no, the internet has a point. And we're like, the internet rarely does.
Yeah, well, sometimes I play devil's advocate where I shouldn't.
I have to say that Rebel Without a Cause had one of the most insane character introductions back to back for 3 characters in a row. From my dad thinks I'm a tramp to why'd you kill those puppies? To slap on the wrist for this kid.
For drunkenly playing with action figures in the street. Which
all
I think...
comparable sins, I think.
Exactly. With Intolerance, I was playing a little bit of devil's advocate. This is one I actually genuinely like. And I don't know. I think the real appeal for Rebel Without a Cause for me might actually not have a whole lot to do with the movie itself, but just the time it came out. I might just love this movie because of the movies it influenced more than I actually love this movie. But I feel like that's part of the fun of watching movies sometimes, is being unable to distinguish. I know we kind of ran into this with Halloween, but I would argue that even something like Halloween doesn't happen without Rebel Without a Cause. Just from the standpoint of, prior to Rebel Without a Cause, we didn't really have this teenage archetypal character, at least not in the way we have it post Rebel Without a Cause. This movie did a lot of legwork to invent the teen movie.
I'm glad that in future teen movies there was less like, you killed a whole litter of puppies, you fucking sociopath.
And I like that there's daddy issues in this movie is a very well-defined spectrum from what I saw.
You got the absentee dad, the dad that doesn't really like the daughter, and the dad that's really doing his best, but the son isn't having it. The 3 big dads. So we can kind of get into that, because I think something we were talking about while watching this is James Dean's character. Oh, I should know this name off the top of my head. Whatever, we're going to go with it. It seems like Jim or something. I appreciate that his parents are so supportive. From the standpoint of it, like, after you said the title is misleading, but I think the title is kind of spot on in he has no reason to be angry. Jim Stark, it is Jim. He has no reason to be angry, and yet he is. And I think at a certain point he recognizes he has no reason to be angry, because you kind of get some reflective moments where he's like, I don't know why I feel this way, I just do. And I think that is a really kind of standard of the teenager character in movies.
I actually think it was touched upon a little bit. I don't remember if it was with the cop originally, like in the beginning, since there's like a lot thrown at you at that point, where he talks about like his dad is being treated by his mom, like not badly, but not like being how a man should, quote unquote, be.
Right.
During that time period.
So the real villain of this movie is the fucking patriarch?
Toxic masculinity. That's what it always comes down to. I had several moments in here where I was like, hey, wait a second, that's Fight Club. Just like...
My dad's supportive. Oh, I'm gonna go make friends with this kid who murders puppies. I'm not gonna let this go.
It never comes up again.
It does not.
What's something bad that a kid would do that wouldn't necessarily land them in juvie? Ending life. Repeatedly. To get my dad's attention.
Like, it's that killing puppies that gets brushed away, and then him telling Gene, I wish you were my dad. And then Gene be like, hey, whoa. And then it's never touched upon again.
Yeah, Plato is a character I find fascinating, because I think for this movie to work, you have to buy into his character, but it is hard to buy into his character in a lot of ways.
I think that watching it as a modern audience, we're missing a lot of the context too. Mm-hmm. But something that we discussed in the very beginning is, are we isolating these movies? Are we ignoring their effects and the things that came after them and where they stand in the hierarchical of great movies? Like, obviously we're not going to have a lot of movies because these older movies didn't come first, you know? Mm-hmm. So we have to ignore that. We have to take the movie by itself. Right. Otherwise they're going to win. Like, is this legitimately a well-made, well-acted, well-shot movie? Mm-hmm. And I think that there are some concerns.
I think the acting is really good.
I think it is different than what I'm used to.
That is fair. This is kind of in that, like, weird... Marlon Brando has just hit the scene, but the effects of that haven't fully taken place era.
I just realized I might have a bias in this. I hate teenage movies. I think teenagers are the dumbest people on the planet. Forgive me, any teenagers who are listening, I love you. What the hell, dude? Just calm down all the time.
Yeah, because you definitely also have to buy into, like, the hormones and the fact that, like, even though these kids seem to be, like, kind of smart, book smart, they have very little concept of consequences. They have no real idea that, oh, this action means this effect.
What part of hormones compel someone to stab another guy in a knife fight for going moo during the planetarium? I feel like there's more going on there than just being a teenager.
I think probably the same hormone that made that kid kill all those puppies.
Daddy issues.
That's the hormone. Hi, Sophie.
I think it's interesting, and again, I struggle to distinguish the timing of this, because and a big reason this ends up being the first teen movie and the timing of it, is prior to this, kids that age, you go to war. Like, the actual war. So I think, like, on the note of what compels you to stab another person, they're trying to figure out how to be men without having a war to go fight. And so then they kind of reflect on we just fight each other. Which we have definitely gone away from.
Definitely don't reach for, like, let's just not fight.
No.
That's insane.
We're several years away from let's just not fight and cyberbully each other instead. But
yeah, that's what I want to watch.
But I do appreciate that movie is a meme for the knife fight. In the sense of like a dude's fight, they just make up afterwards, and they make up by stealing cars and driving them off the cliff.
It's the plot of Gone in 60 Seconds.
And again, I like the scene where they drive off the cliff a lot, because again, they just have no real concept of consequences. Which I don't know.
I also think that part of the reason that this gained such the cult following that it had was that he died right before this aired, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
So James Dean, who for generation after generation was like the lost boy and now is like forever remembered as the lost boy.
Mm-hmm.
And then his kind of death catapulted that fame to a level that he might not have had at that time without it.
Yeah, because James Dean died at age 24, a month before this came out, in a car accident, of all things. Which I think there is definitely something to be said for. He will always be remembered as this eternal lost boy, like you said, and like that talent. I will say, I think James Dean could have gone far, particularly from the standpoint of the only other real big movie he did besides this was East of Eden, directed by Elia Kazan, which is kind of where he got discovered and made it big. And the other actor that Elia Kazan discovered with Streetcar Named Desire was Marlon Brando. So I do wonder if maybe James Dean could have been a Marlon Brando level actor, but again, we'll never really know because unfortunately he passed away so young.
What was the? It sounds like a side tangent, but I promise you, there's dots connected. Movie from the book, the character Soda Pop.
Outsiders.
There you go. The ending to Rebel Without a Cause gives me that sort of vibe from The Outsiders, where the greaser kid gets shot up from the cops as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I could see the parallels for that.
And this did come out over a decade before that book, so.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Again, a lot of, like, you kind of get, like, Grease. And even, I think, like, Back to the Future. I find this movie's relationship to Back to the Future interesting because Back to the Future has such a sense of nostalgia for the 50s. And so I find it really interesting to actually see how the 50s were portrayed in the 50s. But also, this doesn't even feel like a fair portrayal of the 50s because it's such an LA movie.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a deliberate choice in this where these are all well-off white kids in LA, nice homes, white picket fence dream.
See, if you have real problems, you don't start a knife fight.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't know how my family's going to eat this week, and not, oh, my dad, does what my mom says.
Right, exactly. So I think
there
is a deliberate, again, all this kind of adds up to the title of the movie. These kids have no reason to be behaving this way. And so then the question that I kind of find interesting with this movie, for me personally, is why do they behave this way anyway? And I agree with you, Ken. I don't think they would behave this way if they had actual struggles to try and deal with.
What's the main female actress? What's her character name?
Judy.
I feel like that out of everybody, she has sort of a right to feel the way she does.
Well, I mean, she's a woman in the 50s, so, like, she's, like, trying to... I don't even know if it's necessarily get her dad's attention. Like, that, first of all, feels really written by a man.
Yeah.
Because no teenage girl... I'm sorry, it's a trope, but it doesn't happen. Teenage girls do not dress slutty so their dad pay attention to them. They dress slutty because their dad didn't pay attention to them and now they need someone to pay attention to them. There's levels there, and it's not even that simple, but it oversimplifies it and she doesn't get nearly as much character as anybody else. So if anybody has reason to rebel, or a cause to rebel, a rebel with a cause, if you will, it's Judy.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up, like, now that I had time to stew over this movie, when her boyfriend died, like, she just hardcore trauma bonded with Jim, even though he wasn't really that well affected by it.
Yeah. I wrote in my notes, I find it interesting that this movie sets up the archetypal trio for a teenage movie, too, that you see in later, like, Harry Potter, where you have the leader, you have the one seeking validation, and then you have the female. That's really... At the end of the day, that really is Judy's only, like, role in this. I think she's slightly more interesting than other females we'll see slid into this type of story in future stories. But ultimately,
she's still just a female.
She's still just a female. She's not doing a whole lot, unfortunately.
Oh no. Is that our dynamic? Am I the female?
Oh, God.
No.
Well, I guess we have a lot of episodes left to find that out.
Join in next time to find out if I develop a personality.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because she doesn't handle her trauma well, but also she really does just go from guy to guy. Something I find interesting about Jim is, against how this type of character is portrayed in the subsequent stories, I think that Jim truly cares about Judy and Plato.
Tell us, Sophie.
Like, a lot of times you get this edgier character, this edgier guy who doesn't actually care about the people around him, but Jim seems to.
Yeah, like, he just wants to figure out his anger issues.
Mm.
And that's it. And then he was very kind to Plato. I will admit, I did fall asleep a little bit. So, I don't know what exactly was the catalyst for these three characters to essentially be a faux family.
I think they were already kind of connecting, and then after... So how this all kind of plays out is, after Judy's boyfriend dies... Hell if I know what his name is. After Judy's boyfriend dies, Jim decides to go to the cops, and the boyfriend's friends are essentially now going after him because he thinks they ratted him. They think he ratted them out. Judy and Plato decide to go with him, and then they hide out in the house that they saw earlier from the planetarium, which, fun fact, is the house that they filmed Sunset Boulevard in. Which is really fun when you actually notice it. They're messing around the pool, and it's like, hey, that's where that guy died. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that later. Yeah, I think this movie is very much a product of its time, and I think that both hinders and helps the movie, because either you buy into this being a product of its time, or it's just an old movie.
But that's the thing, it's competing against another old movie that is also a product of its time and is still fantastic. And I think that's where it's going to lose.
Alright, yeah, we can start kind of getting into that, because I would definitely say of these two movies, more people have probably seen It's a Wonderful Life. Very popular Christmas movie. A lot of families watch this every year. This was also pulled from AFI Top 100. This was seated 38 in our bracket. I know I've watched this. I think I actually didn't watch this until I was later in high school, because my family has a vendetta against any Christmas movie that's not a Christmas story. But a personal antidote. But what's your guys' experience with It's a Wonderful Life?
We watched this every Christmas, and at first I would fight, because, like, I don't want to watch a lame black and white movie. Then when I was old enough, I was like, this is magic. This is Christmas. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. This is perfection. I'm not even going to talk about the lack of feminism in it. That's how much I love this movie.
my experience with this movie, I think I actually watched this for the first time in high school during my film analysis class. But I definitely remember watching it at home with my dad at one point, but I don't really remember that.
Yeah. I think, like, the way this movie opens and starts is really, like, what a framework of, we're getting this entire story from the perspective of, this is God telling an angel about this guy so this angel can go and prevent this guy from committing suicide. We're told that right off the bat. So then it kind of shifts instead of, oh, we're just learning about this guy, there's, like, cosmic entities at play, and also we're kind of have this in the back of our mind the entire time. What leads this sweet little boy to one day consider jumping off a bridge?
It also has probably the same level of tropes that it inspired and started. Like, a bell rings and an angel gets his wings, and it's very almost Christmas Carol-esque in the, let me show you what your life would look like without you. And tropes like that, I think that I think it's probably just as instrumental.
Right. And I would kind of argue in agreement with that while both these movies have been imitated a handful of times, Rebel Without a Cause, you could easily make the case it has been bested by other teenage movies. It's a Wonderful Life has not really been bested by any of its peers or
I don't know,
replicants. I want to say replicants.
All Dogs Go to Heaven Christmas special got pretty close.
Fair enough.
I think I had a thought, but I lost it. Like, I really like you said in the beginning, in the portrayal of celestial bodies like that, act out with worldly beings, or mortals, I suppose is a better term for that. And you see a kind-hearted dude just grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he never falters once up until, like, things gets very stressful. And he sort of lashes out a little bit, but brain. Yeah, I just thought that's where the thought ends.
George Bailey, I think, is one of the greatest characters in all of cinema history for that reason. Mm-hmm. This man is moral without being... I mean, that's kind of the plot, but that's not really it. Like, he's going to do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Right. And he's going to give up a lot to do it.
Exactly.
I love the soft introduction of him as a kid, and then the reintroduction freeze frame shot of James Stewart with his arms out. It's from the side, is just an incredible freeze frame. And I think that the framework of the entire story allows for that kind of style, because it's not the director inserting a freeze frame, it's God himself.
Right? How are you going to argue with a freeze frame from God?
But it is an incredible freeze frame reintroduction of James Stewart, which, again, kind of getting the timing of this, to my knowledge, I could be wrong about this, but I'm like 90% confident this is his first movie after coming back from World War II. Ooh. So it's a reintroduction of James Stewart into Hollywood as well.
Oh my God.
Granted, not a very successful one at the time, but it's subsequently become very successful. James Stewart kind of struggled to find his way after coming back from war for a while.
Yeah, who wouldn't? It was literally war.
Getting in touch with Alfred Hitchcock.
Which is also a little bit like a war.
A little bit like a war. Truly. I think also on the note of George Bailey being so pure and good, it helps that Mr. Potter is one of the most evil fucking characters ever.
I think that's the thing. I think that by himself, Mr. Potter, or with a normal person, would not seem as evil. And without Mr. Potter, George Bailey would not seem as good. The juxtaposition between the two being absolutely perfect is what makes them such a good person. And because George Bailey does regular everyday things that make him a good person. He sacrificed his savings so that his brother could go to college. He stayed with his family. He sacrifices over and over and over again, but these are things that everybody does for the people that they love. Generally, everybody does. And then Mr. Potter is an everyday villain. We all are surrounded by people who put money first.
Hitting that Christmas carol, the most evil people are landlords.
In case you had any idea where this podcast falls on the political spectrum. But they need each other, and it's fantastic writing. It's fantastic writing to see it play out like that.
I had a little question blip that clearly doesn't really explain what the movie is, but the form of prayer that they do in the beginning of the movie was like, what, 4 people? Like, to help, you said the name? George Bailey. There we go.
George Bailey.
I remember
The main
names.
character, yeah.
Yes. If it takes 4 people to send down an angel to help someone out, how many prayers does one need to kill Mr. Potter from God?
More than 4.
I mean, if we look at the Bible kill count, God's pretty high up there. I mean, what's one more? Come on.
That's one of those God works in mysterious ways, or like only helps those who help themselves. Like, fully would have helped if that, like, specifically the old lady who like only took a little bit of money when they were in trouble, if she had just went for it and like killed him, God would have forgiven her.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Potter just constantly doing anything and everything, no morals, to screw over the little guy. It's amazing to me how many people watch this movie every year and clearly miss that point, per recent news.
One of my absolute favorite things about the movie is really if George Bailey had just like taken a step back and like a couple of deep breaths, and all of this kind of like finishes at the end where they find the rent check, they find the actual rent check, and then his friend lends him money and everybody came together to raise the money. Like, if he had just given it like a good hour or two, everything would have been fine. But he was so dramatic. And I love that for him. He's like, I'm going to kill myself. This is the one.
With no teenage hormones to help him along, he went straight for suicide.
He didn't have daddy issues.
Well, he kind of did.
Yeah.
His dad worked a lot.
Sure did.
But they all get along. I love the little touches of George Bailey and Harry Bailey carrying the mom into the kitchen. Like, they all clearly really care about each other, which I think then helps sell you on, like, George Bailey does immediately drop his trip to Europe to stay with his dad who just got sick.
No hesitation, just hands him all that money they saved.
Yeah.
Which is a testament to their relationship. And then you see the relationship he has with his kids. Like, those kids love him. And I don't know what it is. Anytime kids are like, yeah, I love my dad, I'm like, me too. I love my dad. I just love my dad.
Yeah, George Bailey constantly doing the right thing definitely does a ton of legwork, and being like in that final moment where everyone starts giving him money. It's like, yeah, this guy has kept this town, especially, having seen what it could have been without him. It's like, man, this guy has helped this town so much. Why wouldn't they all give him money?
Yeah.
And like, there's also a moment where the people at the bank that work at the bank that he established, not the bank, it was at the loaner's office.
Building and loan?
Yeah, building and loans, where I forget her name, but she kisses him. She kisses Bailey on cheek, and then when he comes out, she's wiping her cheek, and everybody was like, "Ooh, what's going on there?" But nobody like besmirches his good name whatsoever.
Violet?
There you go.
I love Violet.
And, like, nobody like makes drama out of it. They're like, "What's going on? What's happening?" and they completely trust him.
Yeah, like, something's afoot, but it's probably not George's fault.
No. On the note of this movie also not paying a lot of odes to feminism, every time I watch this movie, the line, "Oh, this thing? I just wear it when I don't care how I look," kills me every time. Violet can do no wrong in my eyes.
I think when he's outside talking to her, and her mom is yelling at her, and she's all, "He's making passionate love to me, mother."
Mary, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I laughed so hard. That's so funny, and it stays funny.
There's a lot of raunchier jokes. I'm not 100% sure how they slid into this movie, but that have aged quite nicely. The whole scene of her in the bush.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
I'll call the cops. Well,
they'll be on
agree
my
with
side.
me.
It's like, is that allowed under the Hays Code? I'm not sure.
I mean, there
Clearly.
was nothing exposed, and there wasn't pigeons being tortured, so...
Yep, there you go.
I don't know what kind of movie would be there were pigeons on a chariot.
We need to bring that back. That's the trope that should have lived.
Pigeons on a chariot. That should be in every movie. Gladiator Part 2 is coming out here in a moment, at least while to the time of recording. That could easily have some pigeons pulling a chariot in there.
100%. 100%.
I think an interesting thing about watching these two movies back to back is they're both old, and It's a Wonderful Life is older, but the pacing of It's a Wonderful Life is so much crisper than Rebel Without a Cause. Like, this movie moves.
And it's succinct. Like,
Yeah.
I think that it manages to capture something that very few even great movies do, in that all of it comes together flawlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And I could sit here and pick apart especially the problems of the time, but honestly, this is one of my favorite movies for a very specific reason, and that's because in addition to being really, really good, it's also really, really good.
Yeah, like, there's no moment wasted. All the small little bits pay off in some way, which again is why the framework of this is so important, because that scene where it's like, oh, you weren't born. So many payoffs to so many, like, just tiny moments. Blink and you'll miss it. Mm-hmm. I think, like, a lot of times it's hard watching this movie for the first time now because you just miss so much.
Yeah.
That actually ends up being pretty important later.
But it becomes the movie that you can watch over and over again.
Right.
Which is not easy to do. And everything feels worth it without pandering or questioning the audience's intelligence. Like, it doesn't necessarily get splayed out, but it's there, and it's beautifully done. Who wrote this movie?
I will look that up right now. It never holds your hand. Like, it never has something where you just have intolerance on the screen over and over. It's not holding your hand.
Sentence where it doesn't make sense.
It's never holding your hand like that. Let's see. Screenwriter is written by Francis Goodrich, Albert Hackett, and Frank Capra. Which Frank Capra is also the director.
I'm gonna find, I know probably most of them are dead or all of them, I don't know. I'm gonna find them and kiss them full on their mouths. Every single one.
They're definitely all old white men, which is perfect.
It is against my deeply held beliefs to kiss old white men.
I
guess I can make an exception.
That was almost a personality that you revealed there.
Oh no. Better replace me with a sexy lamp.
Look behind you.
Oh no!
No, it's a
It
Christmas.
encroaches.
It's a Christmas Story all over again. We'll actually get back into Frank Capra. We have one other movie of his on here, which I will not spoil now. But we do have another Frank Capra oldie cooking on here later down the line.
He dead though, right?
Yeah, he died in 91. Francis
damn.
Goodrich died in 84. This is an old movie. And Albert Hackett passed away in 95. He outlived
I was
all
alive
of
when
them.
he was alive.
I wasn't.
It would not have been appropriate for me to kiss him at the time. I was very young.
Yes, incredible writing. I mean, just to have the ability, and again, the pacing just blows my mind because so many old movies do not pace this well. To be like, this is important, this is important, this is important, and there's no fluff. There's nothing in here that like, yeah, you probably could have got rid of that.
But generally, when there's no fluff like that, you miss a lot of heart. And you like struggle to find that balance. This is nothing but heart.
Yeah.
Like well-paced heart that doesn't get like sappy. Like it's emotional, but you don't feel sappy. You don't feel, come on. At any point in time, you're just like, oh, that man feels everything, and then you feel it with him. I'm a big fan of this movie, in case you have not gathered that.
It's also a good portrayal of, like, I don't know if it's a theme, technically, the absence of goodness.
Right.
So I'm trying to rack my brain of what sort of realistic, down-to-earth movies have that sort of thing going for it, and I don't recall anything that is like that, with the exception of, like, very over-the-top action movies.
A Christmas Carol.
I don't think I've seen that.
You haven't seen A Christmas Carol?
Any of them? There's like 20.
I am continuously shocked by the things you have not encountered in your life.
I've got a Christmas Carol pop sitting on the entertainment system.
We could watch 12 different. We could do like an advent calendar of versions of A Christmas Carol.
Does the DuckTales version count?
You know what?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it counts. You gotta at least watch the Muppet version.
The Muppets version is the best version.
Still haven't seen the Muppets.
No, my goodness, that's right. We have to educate our app on the Muppets still.
And it was showing at Beartooth like 2 weeks ago.
I was working nights. I'm still working nights. I couldn't make it. It was in the middle of the day. It's my sleepy time.
We're gonna make a list.
List the movies we have to show off, which we may or may not talk about in subsequent spin-off episodes.
We gotta watch Muppet Treasure Island too.
Oh, absolutely. Tim Curry, are you kidding me?
Dude.
Anything for that man. I do think, even though like the female Mary doesn't do a whole lot in this movie, I really admire how her character is portrayed, because she's not a blank slate type of female. She does unconditionally love George Bailey, oftentimes kind of in a why do you love this man sort of way, but like he is a really good guy, so her unconditional love for him makes sense. But she also has like small bits of agency where you see when they're throwing rocks at the old house and she's like, I want to live in that one day, and then she takes steps. Like, it's not George Bailey that gets them in that house, it is her who
I'd
gets them in
argue
the
that
house.
she has a lot of agency. Like, we saw her from a little girl what she wanted, and what she wanted was to marry George Bailey, and her love isn't a plot point or like there to help him. Her love is something that they make together and that they grow into together. He loved her, and she helped choose that they weren't going to go on their honeymoon. She pushed the money into his hands. Like, that was her choice too. She's good too. It's just his story.
Right. I agree. Although I do find it interesting, but it makes sense for the story being told, that in the George Bailey is Never Born universe, she's a librarian? Yeah. And
she's kind of frigid.
yeah. But, yeah, she definitely, I agree, she has more agency than most female characters at this time.
Which she decided, some universe where George Bailey didn't exist, she was like, no, I will have George Bailey or I will have no one.
Yeah.
And she was like, me and my books, that's it, and I respect it for her.
Even if...
You go, girl.
Even
George
if
Bailey or
Sam,
bust.
who ended up being very rich, wanted to marry her.
And he did, and she was like, absolutely fucking not, dude. George Bailey doesn't exist, but even I know I could do better.
This is like the one point in this movie that truly frustrates me with Sam getting rich. It's like George Bailey, like Sam asked him to put his money into stock for his company, and George Bailey, like, I can't put all my money in that. It's like, put some of your money in it. Like that shit took off. You could have been much better, much more comfortable if you just put a little bit of money into that stock.
Maybe, but also, you know, maybe if he did that, his kids didn't get great Christmas presents that year, or the building and loan missed a light payment. I don't know how.
He doesn't have kids at that point, but he might have missed the payment. But Sam does go on to be a millionaire. I'm pretty positive. It just says he has millions of dollars later in the story.
Yeah, he does. And he lends it out without problem.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, here. I mean, see, that's why this movie wouldn't work in today, because you just, like, send a text and it's over. Yeah. And it's just a whole bunch of people would have Venmoed him before he even left the building.
Right. Make a remake of It's a Wonderful Life with Venmo. See how it goes.
It's a 20-minute movie.
It's on...
this is why God doesn't help people anymore.
It's a 20-minute movie,
Venmo.
And it's all
Venmo.
delivered on clips on TikTok. Just get 2 minutes at a time. 10 episodes. All right. I think I have an idea of where this is going. Unless you guys have anything to add, I guess we can get into how we're voting here.
Let us vote.
Real quick, I just want to say, in the vein of George Bailey not putting his money in stocks, I feel like if he didn't have the responsibility, he probably would have done it. As well as, I think it's just another bit of a testament to his character that he doesn't take shortcuts.
Right. He never takes shortcuts. I do agree with that.
God help him, but he put himself up on that cross, though.
Yeah, so what direction are you guys going with this?
In a twist that will shock everybody. No, I'm just kidding. It's a Wonderful Life.
I have to go with Rebel Without a Cause because that intro is insane, and that sticks out to me like a sore thumb.
Actually going Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah.
I want you to know that if Rebel Without a Cause wins, you have to watch it again.
Okay.
I'm in an interesting position here. I was hoping that I wouldn't be the deciding vote on this because I am slightly torn between these movies.
We just talked about how not great of a movie Rebel Without a Cause was, and then we spent the rest of the time talking about how incredible It's a Wonderful Life is, and then y'all do this to me?
I defended Rebel Without a Cause. I do love Rebel Without a Cause.
And then you admitted a bunch of flaws that it had.
Yeah, and I will say, as much as I love Rebel Without a Cause, I love it more for the timing and the sense of nostalgia it gives me than maybe the actual movie itself. And I can infinitely rewatch It's a Wonderful Life, regardless of thinking about it, the time period in which it came out. So I'll cave and go I'll cave and go It's a Wonderful Life on this.
I'm about to start my villain arc.
No character.
Women can be villains. I'm already. Am I queer coded? If you're queer, are you queer coded?
Absolutely. We've been watching X-Men 97. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm queer coded and really hot. Therefore, I'm a villain.
Yes, because as we learned from X-Men 97, you can only get hot by becoming a villain. So yeah, final things. Our Batman connection is that in the Batman the Animated Series episode Christmas with the Joker, Batman and Robin watch It's a Wonderful Life, and Batman says, "It was okay."
That's really high praise from Batman.
I'm like 90% positive that's what he says. I just watched this episode the other day. Oh no, he says, I just watched the other day, he says, "It has its moments." Which, highest praise from Kevin Conroy's Batman. With that, our final section, And an interesting one because this is the first movie we've done where they have actually done a Muppets remake of it already.
Right? So we
It's
don't have...
a very Muppet Christmas movie, which I haven't seen in a long time, but I looked into it. The human character that they keep is the angel in that one.
Aw. I was going to say Clarence or Mr. Potter.
I was going to say Mr. Potter.
I think it'd be really
Mr.
funny
Potter.
to have all these Muppets and he's just a really bad guy to Muppets.
Yeah.
Which is worse.
But then I almost wonder if you do Mr. Potter, is it just Muppets A Christmas Carol? Where instead of Scrooge, who is a landlord that sucks, you have Mr. Potter, who's a landlord
Either way,
that
I
sucks.
will watch it.
Either way, I'll watch it. It's true. And the best part of that movie, though, by far, is the confirmation that Kermit did cause 9/11.
Excuse me?
So the movie came out in 2002. In the sequences, the Twin Towers are not showed throughout that entire movie, but in the sequences where Kermit is not born, the Twin Towers are shown in the background. That is the movie that canonizes that Kermit caused 9/11.
Oh my god.
Just one of the biggest slip-ups of all time that has subsequently become a lot funnier than it should be. So we have to show Af. It's a very Muppet Christmas movie, so he can see that Kermit caused 9/11.
Oh my god. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Incredible stuff from the Muppets. They also do a play of Moulin Rouge in that, which again, I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I don't remember Moulin Rouge being that PG.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That's not. I was made to watch Moulin Rouge.
I haven't seen it in a very long time.
The girl I was seeing at the time was like, "It's my favorite movie." And I was like, "I don't like when they sing," and I still watched it.
I can't wait to talk about musicals with you, Ken. It's going to be lovely. So with that, I think that's all we got for this episode. Hopefully we'll see you next week, where we will be talking about... Hold on, let me get my shit together. Blah, blah, blah. This is the longest tease of all time. Oh, where we will be talking about 2 comedies, actually, in Grand Budapest Hotel versus Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh my
So
gosh.
come back next week to see us far more
Finally.
giggly than we might have been this week. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.